Right. Welcome everyone to the afternoon of TechCon Day 1. I'm Brian Wilson, your host for the API Management and Gateways track today. So great to be learning along with all of our colleagues today. Next up, we have Hunter and Ricky. Don't forget to raise your hand by asking questions in the chat. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Hunter and Ricky. Take it away.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Brian. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Is everybody able to see it real quick? Thumbs up. Okay. All right. So thank you everybody for joining today. Like Brian said, I'm Hunter Kochi. This is Ricky Morehouse. He's going to be joining. So Ricky, or co-presenting. Ricky's a cloud architect and I'm a product manager. And we're both really involved in API management, specifically API Connect. And today we're going to be presenting to you a topic that I think is really present in our day-to-day, which is how APIs and AR are powering each other to deliver unprecedented levels of speed, productivity, and innovation. Within this topic, there's two loops that I think are important to remember. One is how APIs are empowering AI, and one is how AI is impacting and empower APIs. So the first kind of, I guess, half of this loop that we want to talk about is how AI is helping APIs by enhancing development efficiency. The two key factors that we look at when seeing how AI is impacting it is one, speeding up redundant tasks. AI has a really good ability to do a lot of what I like to call plumbing. So doing a lot of the tedious and redundant tasks to kind of set up the framework of the things that you're operating. Next is it provides us with really strong or really reduced learning curves by enabling users to interact using natural language. Therefore, decreasing the learning curve and lowering the amount of time it takes to actually use and get value from the product. The first topic that I want to go over is API testing. And this is really related to that first notion that we talked about of speeding up redundant tasks. The first feature that I like to talk about is something that Ricky and I have worked closely with, which is speeding up testing. So testing is one of the most critical aspects of any development, and especially with API development, when there's so much interaction going on, this is a very critical yet tedious task. I mean, it makes sense. What you're building, all you're doing is just kind of rebuilding tests to just make sure that all the behavior is correct. And this specific feature that we've worked on is called Auto Test Assist. What Auto Test Assist does is it generates thousands of random biased or thousands of requests using random bias sampling based on the open API specification. So the AI is going through, seeing the specification, getting whatever configuration settings that a user would like. How often are they testing? How many endpoints are we testing? Just kind of general large scale fuzz testing that we like to go through. And then when you hit start, it runs and it generates this large report, as you can see right here, as to how your API is interacting with these thousands of tests. The main value that we see with this is, again, kind of like what I talked about. It reduces a lot of plumbing. No developer wants to sit down and spend hours and hours just kind of writing menial tests to just make sure that what they built is actually working. This dramatically reduces that time and speeds up development. In that same vein, and kind of almost a subset of Auto Test Assist, is smart generation of tests. So this is really in line and kind of what's happening behind the scenes of Auto Test Assist, which is that intelligently generated API test. It looks at the specification, compares it to a model in the data on wire, and it intelligently generates assertions. So using the right headers and payloads. And the beauty of this within API Connect specifically is that it can be integrated within the CI/CD pipeline. So you can have continuous testing, you can run it way more efficiently. And although not necessarily natural language interaction, kind of what we talked about at the very beginning, which is you're really trying to do as much as possible to reduce the amount of time spent with a platform or a tool. The tool is really meant for you to get to an end goal. You know, I want to make sure that my API ecosystem is strong and robust. And by, again, building tools that enable you to do that as fast as possible is the ultimate goal. And the nice thing about this, although maybe not AI interaction, again, CI/CD interaction, trying to keep that in mind is what our ultimate goal is.
It's
Okay.
worth mentioning we've got a deeper dive on the API testing capabilities tomorrow at the same time. So anyone who wants to learn more about that, come along to G23 tomorrow.
Please do. Thank you so much for that, Ricky. Okay. The next kind of feature level that I want to talk to you guys about is this non-conversational assistant. Specifically, it's looking at creating specifications enhancement for your open API, trying to increase documentation, and the next dealing with error validation. So again, the specification of a YAML file or Swagger or whatever you want to, whatever your preferred terminology is, it can be a little bit nuanced, right? It's developed by a person. The syntax can kind of get a little bit muddled. This AI, what it does is it kind of enables you and puts you in this ability where you can just easily see everything and have suggestions to fix a lot of the syntax errors. So this is our feature. I'm going to walk you through it real quick. So you can see we have the Open API specifications. We're in API Connect, and we're running to see, is there anything that we can do for errors? This was a perfectly built API. I built it myself, so I'll take the credit there. And you can see that I'm going through and I'm just altering things. So I'm editing it, making sure that it is messed up, so that way when we go through the specification error, it points it out. So when doing so, you see it sees the missing version. It sees what it thinks is a missing description, which is really just a misspelled description, and then the title as well. And then if you go through, you can click Apply Fixes. Again, the importance of this and what we see is, and these errors were still left over, but it should go away. Oh, and there's another one. So again, same issue with the license and the versioning. So we just wanted to add some additional stuff. And then when it goes through, you can see no more errors. So again, kind of touching upon what I talked about. It's a matter of doing a lot of the plumbing. This is information that's not necessarily, this is bandwidth that I think would be detrimental to a developer if they spent all their time going through error specifications, making sure syntax is perfectly matched. It's important for it to match because programs need to work. But again, that's a lot of redundant time wasted just trying to make sure your specification matches instead of actually spent on thinking, problem solving, and going through things. The next half of this tool that I want to talk to you about is this idea of documentation enhancement. So specification enhancement. Text augmentation is what we call it. There was just a little intro. So again, what this does is it takes a lot of the tedious work of documenting out of it. That's one of AI's strong suits. Development of natural language, or sorry, Gen AI. It allows you to really speed up a lot of the documentation. You can see here after running it through our API assistant or our non-conversational API assistant that it's going through and it's reading the documentation. Say you're trying to retrieve the orders, the details of your order. It's giving you an example of potential order numbers, and then of course it's adding a description, so the order number, and it's all getting this based off of the specification that exists, and it's doing it for every operation. So it allows this kind of knowledge transfer to be way easier, especially because a lot of times it's never just one developer on one API. It's it's more of a complicated mess, I guess you could call it. And again, what this does is it enables this knowledge transfer to be much faster. So trying to reduce plumbing, enable kind of, like we said, knowledge transfer, and then go from there. Okay. So the next topic that I wanted to touch upon is AI powering APIs and development through assistants. And when we say assistant, I'm talking about natural language interactions. So people are gradually using more and more AI-powered assistants to design and test APIs. Even though API assistants have limited functionalities, if you scope it and understand what you're doing it for, it allows you to really learn products way faster, get the time to development way faster. Here we have a couple use cases: security, creation and testing, which I kind of already showed you, docs generation, error remediation, API discovery, and API consumption. All the major critical features within the API lifecycle. So the keys that make Gen AI powerful for assistants, like I talked about, is its ability to understand and respond in natural language. Not saying these days are gone, but this kind of old adage of going to Stack Overflow and just kind of, sorting through hundreds of documentation or hundreds of docs and queries or different conversations and chats just to find an answer to a really niche problem, I won't say is gone, but it's significantly reduced. That's where I see really this extremely powerful use case for API assistance. Ricky can talk to this too, but we use at IBM an HR assistant. Again, no longer are you sifting through hundreds and hundreds of docs just to answer a certain question, but you're able to, through natural language, like a conversation with an expert, get the information that you need. And the beauty of it too is that's kind of like what humans do. So it understands context to a degree. Obviously, right now it's probably not what it will be, but will get more sophisticated over time. These things take time to develop, but it's almost as if you're talking to a resident expert for a certain topic. So now instead of having to wait for your HR assistant, let's call your HR person in your company Dan. Instead of having to wait for Dan's calendar to open up, and Dan's servicing 60 people, and his calendar's almost never open, and you just need to ask him for 5 minutes a question, that becomes a totally different situation, where now you could actively get almost a carbon copy of Dan, understanding context with the same knowledge base. And not only that, also this ability, which Ricky will talk about in a second, with this expanded database and its ability to kind of plug into different things and to continue forward. And this is, again, just a quick summary of what I talked about. Gives you an accelerated time to value. APIs for teams that know how to develop, operate, and secure way faster. And something that I didn't really touch upon a ton is it allows lower skilled teams to take advantage of this. Not in any way calling any team super low skill, but just understanding and learning products take time. Understanding and learning environments take time. Understanding and learning how your company wants to do things take time. If you can reduce that time to value, that ability for you to say, I need to publish an API, instead of learning where it is in the UI or losing it in the UI, going through searching for docs, spending 5 minutes to search for docs, log off, search in Google, find it in Stack Overflow, you can get immediate real-time access to this. Next, no compromise on code quality. Again, our goal is to ensure that developers are spending all their time on making strong architectural and strategic decisions and having to really think about complex things and problem solve, stuff that AI isn't the best at. And by enabling an AI agent to build the plumbing, lay the foundation, so that way all you have to do is build the house on top of that foundation. That's what we're going for. So you never have to question the integrity of what that house is standing on, what your code is standing on, because you understand that it's built on the most sound principles available. Now, don't get me wrong, you probably should go through and always double check your work. I think that's just the nature. AI sometimes makes mistakes, but what it does is it allows almost to create scaffolding so you can just go through and double check. Just make sure that it's there instead of having to spend so much time learning and building and relearning these things that are super formulaic, super simple. And then kind of, again, that last point really ties in everything, is it just minimizes manual work, just routine things. Like I said, laying the plumbing, building the foundation, stuff that's simple, but takes time to learn and is super formulaic. That's the super extreme benefit of having an AI powered API assistant. And yeah, so this is kind of closing in the last, or the first loop that I mentioned of AI helping develop APIs. We're trying to embrace, IBM, Ricky and I, every facet of AI within API management, and which includes development and socialization. What this does, again, like I said, is our goal is not to use more AI. Our goal is to enable our users to be more powerful, spend less time learning, spend less time on redundant tasks. And the most effective way to do that at this current time is by using AI. And that's the 3 features I talked about. The non-conversational API assistant, error specification, building out docs, adding descriptions, adding examples, API testing. So going through and doing a lot of that grunt work of making sure the code you're building is strong, making sure the APIs you're building can withstand the really important tasks that they need to go through every single day. And then lastly, speeding up redundant tasks, using assistants. Just being able to almost have an expert in anything that you're doing is so critical and so helpful. And I think it really kind of expands the breadth and the opportunities and capabilities that you have with tools, regardless of if they're IBM or not. But just being able to almost have a tool expert with you at all times, I believe is going to be super critical and helpful for development moving forward. So yeah, if you have any questions about this topic in particular, feel free to email me. And then now I'm going to hand it over to Ricky to talk about the second leg of APIs helping AI.
Yeah, so in this side, we're going to look at how APIs provide that backbone to AI models to help provide that structure and enhance the functionality beyond what the model knows when it's trained. So this is sort of giving AI access to business function and logic beyond the generation from the model's learning. So if we move on. 2 areas where we see this today as we're moving forward with AI. We see these agentic frameworks taking precedence that lets the AI work in a broken up set of tasks. So instead of just taking one query and giving you a response, we instead see the AI breaking up the query into these tasks, going off and using different tools and APIs to action each of those stages to come back with a complete answer or travel booking or whatever it is that you're needing. So it actually goes off and does a series of tasks, builds out the work and comes back with a fully completed solution. And in order to do this, we use APIs with AI systems to enable it to connect to a number of different external systems. These could be databases or SaaS offerings or internal systems of record. And by describing these well in APIs, whether that's through an open API specification or through expanding the use of GraphQL so that you can describe your entire graph of data in a way that AI can use one single API endpoint to go off and get this diverse data from across your many systems. Having that well defined and clear makes it a lot easier for integrating into an agentic framework so that you've got that knowledge base of your entire business available to the AI assistants. And as we're starting to look at this and expanding our use of the different AI models, one key area that we need is to look at how we control that and secure that. So what we have in API Connect is the concept of an AI gateway. And the way this works is we expose the models not directly to our end users and applications within the organization, but we put this AI gateway in between. And that gives us a single place to handle the security, the governance, the sign up, the contract negotiations, so that we can make sure that we've got the economies of scale, any of the security insights, knowing which models are being used across the entire organization. And I'll show you how this works here. So within API Connect, and you can go and try this today in our SaaS environment with a free trial. And we go in to create an API, and under Open API 3, as that's the latest spec, we've got the option of the AI gateway. And in this case, we're going to use watsonx as an example. We do have support for OpenAI and Gemini as well. So we give it a title as you would any other API. We provide the API key to use for our organizational account. Now, best practices would be to use a catalog property to reference there rather than putting it in, but for a demo, we'll just use a throwaway key. Then we can see here, as we set up the usual security options, client ID could have a secret as well, with standard rate limiting. But we're also going to add the new AI token rate limiting instead. So here we're going to say, for demo purposes, that we want to limit it in terms of tokens per minute. And that will build us out an AI gateway API, which has all the policies in there to go through to the gateway. We're going to publish that one to our catalog, same way as we would any other API. This will then make it available to our consumers. If we click through to the consumer catalog and log in, we'll see that we've now got this AI gateway product there that's available for our internal developers to subscribe to. So rather than having to go through all the steps to sign up to the different models, it's just a case of subscribe through the portal. Then they'll be able to create a request in their chosen HTTP client or add it to their application and paste in the details of the request that they want to use. So in this case, we specify the model ID and the prompt, how many the parameters are, and this is based on exactly the same schema as the model would use directly. So it works as a drop-in replacement to go in the path for any existing applications as well. I see here the initial request took a couple of seconds to return. Now, because we've got caching enabled, if we send it again, we get a quick response. So that's another benefit we've got with the AI gateway. Increases the speed and reduces the number of tokens used if you're not needing to go back to the model for the second time the same query is requested. The other side of this, once you've started using it in your organization, is to see how the models are being used. So we've got this custom analytics view for AI usage, shows you the number of tokens being used and how they're being used across the day, both on the request and the response. And then the details as a heat map by hour, so we can see what times of day the AI APIs are being used most. Then, and when we go into the more details, we can see exactly which organizations are using these APIs, when they're using them, who's using the most tokens. And as we scroll down, we see which models are being used, so we know which are most popular. And this can all be then used as a business to feed into how we negotiate contracts with the different providers, how we control which models we're using across our business, encourage people to move on to more preferred or cheaper models, and generally have a good view and control of how our AI is being used within the organization, giving us that enforcement point and single point of control across the organization. So we covered a number of different things here on how APIs are helping AI. We've got the agentic frameworks providing a way for AI to call out to different APIs and tools to build out its knowledge base beyond its initial training. And connecting to those different data sources, whether they're databases or SaaS systems or systems of record. And this helps you expand and control how AI is used across your organization.
Okay, sweet. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate we appreciate the time. We still have a couple minutes left, and we're going to open the floor up to questions. Brian, I'll let you take over for a minute, and should I keep sharing or should I stop?
You can stop sharing, but
Okay.
Let's see if anyone wants to ask any further questions. There's only been one, and that question was, are AI recommendations a separate license other than Cloud Pak for integration VPC license? And I believe everything you've talked about is just included in API Connect.
Yeah, so it's in SaaS Premium is the error specification and validation. The auto test assist is standard, so that's the testing is included in everything. The one thing that's I'm not 100% recalling is the AI gateway. So that's one that I'm not entirely remembering.
So AI Gateway is included within the licensing. If you're on an API call-based license, you're paying by the API call there. VPC, it's using the standard gateway. It's not an additional gateway, even though it's called AI Gateway. It's a set of policies that we provide on data power to make that function available.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Well, so far, no other questions coming in, but we'll give it another minute here as I kind of share a few other things for you all. So again, thanks for attending. And, if you don't want to talk here, you don't have the question quite formulated, or it's more complex than a simple, type a question in the chat, feel free to join us in office hours. We have office hours at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time today and all 3 days of the conference. And that gives you the opportunity to talk to the presenters live. And whether it's a specific question or a topic you want to, kind of start a whole conversation on with everyone involved, that's what we're there for. So, even if you don't have a question, come join office hours and, listen in and learn. The other thing is you will be getting a poll question here in the bottom left corner of your screen. Please do take a moment, respond to that before you jump to your next session. That feedback is invaluable to us so that we can keep doing these sessions and keep improving TechCon year after year, as well as honestly help us prepare for the Tech Exchange conference, which is coming up in October in Orlando this year instead of Las Vegas. So, here on the East Coast and, bigger and better than ever. So please share that, feedback with us, as well as join the Tech Exchange community. There's a community for API Connect, for for data power, essentially for each product, where again you can interact with the teams and get the latest blogs and things such as that from product management and our developers. So please check out the Tech Exchange community as well. All right, and we did not get any other questions. So I guess we will call that a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time. And again, we'll see you in the next session.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.